Hey, everybody, welcome to Downballot Roundup, where I introduce you to Democratic candidates running in local elections throughout the country. I'm Bryan Randolph, and today I'm here with Terrell Williams, who is running the Delaware House of Representatives to represent Delaware's ninth District. Hello, Terrell. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Bryan. Thank you for all the work you've been doing, bringing
Oh,
exposure
thanks.
to down ballot candidates such as myself. The hard work that you're doing trying to spread the word about democracy, which
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think is very important. So many people get their information from other sources other than traditional media, and you and your podcast is another resource for people to gather authentic information about candidates that they're hoping to support, looking to support, or they want to find out more information about.
What I'm trying to do, so I'm glad to hear it. Well, why don't you start by telling me a little bit about you?
Sure. You know what? My name is Terrell Williams. For everyone that didn't catch it the first time around, I am the Democratic nominee running for state representative in Delaware's ninth district. A little bit about the ninth district. The ninth district was traditionally a farmland county or district within the state of Delaware that has transitioned into a modern suburbia. So we have an influx of people that's moving into Delaware, a lot of families with school age children, and a growing 55 and over community that's looking to settle down and spend the rest of their days in the beautiful state of Delaware, which happens to be the first state. I am originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so I like to tell people all the time I'm a Philadelphian. I've been in Delaware for the last 10 years. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Jamila. We have a beautiful blended family with children ranging from 22 all the way down to 9. So I told you a little bit about my 9-year-old offline, but about, what is it, 4 daughters, 3 boys between the two of us. I'm an attorney. Spent a lot of time working for the VA as a disability attorney and other work as a federal civil service employee and also a public defender. So I tell people that I'm a lifelong public servant. Not to mention that I've spent 20 years in the Pennsylvania National Guard. So I am finishing up my tenure there. A couple of more years, finishing out as a JAG officer. Again, representing soldiers, representing our country, representing the great state of Pennsylvania. But I am a Delawarean. For those of you that's questioning my loyalty, I'm a Delawarean, a Philadelphian, and I have a lot of respect for the great state of Pennsylvania. Getting back to a little bit about my district. My district is filled with new construction. The way the ninth district looks today is vastly different from when I used to make trips down from my college, Cheney University, to come visit friends and frat brothers and go to parties down at Delaware State University, which are two HBCUs. The growth has been expansive, to say the least. It has changed the culture, the infrastructure here in Delaware. And one of the reasons why I'm running because my Republican opponent has ignored working and middle class families. That is why I am running. And I tell people I am the best candidate for the ninth district because I represent 80% of the people within my district, as opposed to my opponent who represents 10% and with 10% undecided.
Excellent. All right. Well, so, and by the way, where is exactly the ninth District
So
geographically?
the ninth district is located in Newcastle County, Delaware. Is Lower Newcastle County. So in Delaware, we're a small state. We're made up of 3 counties: Newcastle County, Kent County, and Sussex County. Newcastle County is the biggest county. It has the most people. So right now, I tell people Wilmington traditionally is looked at as the biggest. Well, it is the biggest city within the state of Delaware. But Middletown, the Middletown area that encompasses Middletown, Odessa, Townsend, we here, us natives to Delaware, like to call it the MOT community, is the fastest growing community in Delaware.
All right. So when
So
you,
it's
oh, go ahead.
just below the canal.
Okay.
Sorry about
All right.
that.
No, no, no.
Just below.
So when you've been going out in the county and talking to people, what are you hearing as the kind of bigger issues for people in District 9?
I would say the three biggest issues right now is infrastructure and development, education, and public safety. So with infrastructure and development, um, we have builders that's coming in. They're buying up all the farmland. They're putting up new houses. And when I tell you they're putting up new houses, they're putting up these houses within 6 to 9 months. Our population growth has gone from probably about 15,000 to close to 20, closing in on 25,000 people within not just the ninth district, but the eighth district and a few of the other districts that make up the MOT community. So we have seen a lot of growth and expansion below the canal. With that, our infrastructure is burdened because we have so many new houses going up. We don't have the roadways, we don't have the stores, we don't have the infrastructure like police and fire and paramedics to help keep the community safe as all of these people move in. Our traffic has become a nightmare. So for many of us that live below the canal, many of us still work in places like Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Maryland, and we have long commute times. Some people in my district commute all the way down to DC. They commute all the way up to Philly, or they commute all the way up to New York City, either via Amtrak or public transportation. And with so many people on our roadways, we have seen an increase in traffic accidents. With so many different people coming in from so many different places, driving mannerisms have changed. People are super aggressive, they're super fast, they cause long delays. Our roadways aren't big enough to handle the amount of traffic that we see on it now. Outdated zoning laws, outdated lease grants have created a nightmare. Some of the plans and infrastructure that we have in the ninth district came as far back from the 90s. They were approved in the 90s, and now we have the development here. But some of those plans have not changed, and it creates a nightmare when you have warehouses being built right in our backyards, where you have a 300 home development that's right there. On some of our roadways, we have tractor trailers, bicyclists, recreational runners, and cars. And as you can imagine, we've had several accidents and several tragedies as a result.
Do you think this is going to be more of a road infrastructure issue, or do you think that there's a public transportation expansion option?
Both. Let me go with the public transportation option because I love to talk about public transportation. As we talked about off screen, I already told you that I'm a Philadelphian, so I grew up in the city of Philadelphia. Uh, Throughout my K through 12 education, I caught the bus. Up in Philly, we have SEPTA, Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority. Down in Delaware, we have DART, Delaware Area Rapid Transportation. Um, I believe the next generation of people, Generation Alpha, young millennials, all prefer to catch public transportation. Many of them do not necessarily prefer to catch the bus, but they love to utilize light rail service and high speed rail lines. I am a person that wants to build a light rail system in the state of Delaware. I am a legislator that when I am elected, that is going to be one of my biggest priorities is to educate the legislature on the benefits of public transportation. And right now, especially if we get President elect, I'm going to speak it into existence, Kamala Harris and VP elect Tim Walz into office come January, we're going to have federal resources to reshape the infrastructure in the state of Delaware. One of the milestone pieces of that infrastructure development should be a light rail system. We have the opportunity right now to create a light rail system that connects northern Delaware with southern Delaware, that connects SEPTA with MARC, which is the transportation system that connects Maryland to DC to Northern Virginia. And we are able to connect public transportation, light rail service between Philadelphia, Delaware, and Maryland. We will have united the Mid-Atlantic Regional Transportation train services in the Mid-Atlantic and northeastern part of the United States. Now, what does that mean? That means that we will then allow Amtrak to become the regionalized high-speed rail service that it was intended to be. That means we'll have public transportation connection from Connecticut or even Massachusetts, from Boston all the way down to Richmond, Virginia. We will be the first region in the United States to allow Amtrak to refocus its resources on being a high-speed rail line while bringing public transportation to everyday Americans, not just Delawareans, who can then utilize the rail service instead of having to depend on the airline service, getting in their vehicles, congesting up our highways, worrying about aggressive driving, drunk driving, distracted driving. We will be able to model what European and Asian countries have already been doing for 20 years.
Do you think, do you think that you could see an Amtrak split down the Delmarva Peninsula at some point?
Yes, but not only that, Amtrak may not have to do that if we create a regional high-speed rail service or a light rail service. Amtrak can then focus on just making major stops along its route. It could go up and down the Northeast Corridor. It could start in Richmond and say, hey, we're only going to make stops in Richmond. What's next? DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, and then go all the way into Toronto.
All right, I had to get I am also a train guy, so I had to ask it. Okay, so as far as do you have any particular issues where you and your opponent really differ?
Yes, I'll get back to it. I said three issues that's most important to the people in the ninth district, and I said infrastructure, which I've talked about. Next would be education. I tell people one of the benchmarks that we should use, one of the litmus tests that we should use to measure public school education in this country is how well our students do on the military entrance exam, better known as the ASVAB. Right now, we can see that national statistics show us that many of our students, public school student graduates, are unable to pass the ASVAB. The minimum score is a 31. It is a ninth grade test, and our students are failing at it, including students in the state of Delaware, including students in my district. I want to introduce legislation that will allow 12th grade seniors that's interested in joining the military to take an ASVAB-based course for their whole senior year. That way that we can teach them the exam. That way we can maximize their ability and focus, one, to be able to pass the military entrance exam so it's no longer a barrier. Two, so that we will have competent soldiers that's able day one to go to basic training and be able to grasp some of the new technology that is coming out that our soldiers and sailors and service members are being tasked with handling. And three, to address the shortage of enlisted soldiers that we have coming through our pipelines. Not only that, I tell people this story often as a nod to my mom. My mom was a candy striper. She graduated from Germantown High School in 1948. She knew from the time she was a little girl, she wanted to be a nurse, right? So the Candy Striper program, for people that don't know, for some of those people younger than us, is an apprentice program. It gave students who were interested in nursing the opportunity to walk around, volunteer, and become affiliated and trained with nursing programs in local hospitals. From there, my mom went on to Pennsylvania Institute of Technology, where she became an LPN, a licensed nurse practitioner. And then from there, she went to Women's Medical College, where she became a registered nurse. And finally, at LaSalle College, which is now LaSalle University, to earn her bachelor's degree in nursing. I say all that because it was an assembly line that didn't overburden her financially, but allowed her to acquire the skills over a period of time to become proficient in her profession. It is time for America to reinvest in one, on the job training programs, OJT. Let's make it simple for people who do not want to go to college to be able to go to work. Let's be able to pay those people for developing skills. 80% of the people that go into the military do not have college degrees, right? They start off without college degrees. How do they learn how to do the sophisticated jobs that they're tasked with during their military service? Through apprenticeship programs, on the job programs, advanced individual training. We have figured this out, America. Let's go back and focus in on apprenticeship programs. Let's connect the unions to the schools. Let's bring jobs in like Walmart, like Exxon, like Boeing. Hey, let's grab this cohort of kids that are interested in these types of professions. One, let's bring them exposure so that they understand what it is that they're doing. Number two, let's make the training simple. Everybody doesn't need to be a rock star in our society. Let's reconnect the working class with the middle class. Let's take away the language barrier. Let's take away the perceived perception of professionalism, and let's take some of those unspoken words that kind of divide the working and middle class from communicating, and let's just talk about dollars and cents. What makes dollars, what makes sense for America is to have a robust workforce. So America doesn't have a problem sending kids to college. For those kids that want to go to college, there are an abundance of opportunity out there for them to go to college. Let's talk about the kids that don't, and that will determine America's future. How do we grow the working and middle class for those students who don't want to go to college? Now, and I tell people I talk about my mom, but let me talk about my father. I grew up in a union household. I grew up in a house that was bought by the VA loan program, right? So I grew up in a very working class, lower middle class household, right? My dad had an 8th grade education, but he served his country. And coming home from the Korean War, him and my mom were able to settle down and buy a house in Northwest Philadelphia. From there, my dad worked for the city of Philadelphia for 25 years for the Philadelphia Water Department. Again, he only had an 8th grade education. Masonry, plumbing, electrical work, carpentry. These aren't complicated jobs, people. Let's get people the training that they need so that they can go out and help not only work, but help rebuild America.
Okay. All right. And just because I want to hear, what was the third?
The third one was public safety, crime. So I tell people, I call it my first responder initiative. So in Delaware, where I live at in the 9th district, we're below the canal. So we're kind of separated by the Delaware River. Most of the resources for the county, because of the bulk of Newcastle County is above the canal, goes above the canal. And 10 years ago, that worked because we didn't have the population to kind of support having more police, more fire, more paramedics below the canal. But now that we have an abundance of people, we need those resources. One of the things that I want to do in the state of Delaware is convert our reliance on volunteer firefighters. Quite frankly, they're not getting the volunteer efforts that they used to. Again, I think we can do a lot with firefighting, the firefighter profession by just linking those jobs and resources back to our local high schools, catching kids early. One of the reasons why some of our youth have shied away from public service jobs such as police and such as being paramedics and being firefighters because we made it too complicated for them to enter into those professions. We're overburdening them with requirements that don't make sense. So, one, I want to transition Delaware from relying on volunteer fire companies. I want to make a county-wide fire department. I want to hire more paramedics, and I want to actually have the county pay for their actual training. And then I want to consolidate the police departments in the state of Delaware. Guys, Delaware is one of the smallest states in our republic. But we have close to 60 some police departments. In Newcastle County alone, we have about 20. You know what? It is time to consolidate that. They are a burden on taxpayers. When you have 20 different police departments in a county that's only but so big, it's about the size of Philadelphia, a little smaller. Could you imagine Philadelphia with 20 different police departments? Could you imagine DC with 20 different? No, what
I
I
was going
take
to say.
that back about DC. But my point is, I want to bring uniformity back to police departments, especially in the state of Delaware. I want to connect police departments back to the counties, to the communities in which they serve and represent. And one of the best ways to do that is just to have one police department. Let's have one county-wide police department. We can have police departments that keep the name of some of the townships and municipalities that they serve, but let's just get under one umbrella and let's disperse those resources equally throughout the county. And then let's ensure that people are safe, that when they call the police, that the police are arriving within 2 to 3 minutes and not 5 to 12 minutes. Because when emergencies happen, we understand that time is of the essence. When you look at calling a first responder in my district because you're having a medical emergency, God forbid, it is 27 minutes up the highway to our nearest trauma center, which would be Christiana Care in Newark. It's 33 minutes to the Christiana Care facility, full service facility that's in Wilmington, Delaware. It's about 35 minutes if you go south to our Bay Health facility that's in Dover, Delaware. In the meantime, we have a dependency and reliance that's just on a standalone emergency room that serves the Middletown community. But if you need more advanced medical care, they're going to end up having to transport you to another hospital, which again incurs a cost on the patient and their families that wouldn't be necessary if we just complete the building of another hospital in the MOT community.
All right. So we've come to my last question, which is my favorite question. It's my softball question. I want you to tell me something about your district that makes it special to you.
Diversity.
Okay.
I live in one of the most diverse districts in Delaware. You get a cross representation of just about everybody. I have a large Republican concentration of people in my district, right? You know what? They don't necessarily agree with my politics, my policy, or my platform. But you know what? They're respectful. They're tolerant. Their children play with my children, right? When they see me, hey, Terrell, do you want a hot dog or hamburger? They're still going to bring over a holiday gift and I'm going to return the favor, right? I think the cross representation of different cultures that make Delaware special because everyone's coming from somewhere else. It's rare to run into someone from Delaware now, especially in my community, that have just spent their whole life in Delaware.
Fantastic.
They may have been born in Delaware. They went away to school. They were in the military, and now they're back home. And you know what? We all connect around the vast changes that are happening in our state. No matter what our ideological policies and thoughts are, I think at the end of the day, everybody wants what's best, not only for themselves, but for their neighbors too. And that gives me hope in a purple district where the incumbent has been in office for 10 years, that I'll be able to flip this seat. Because you know what? People may not agree with me philosophically, but they understand that I'm going to do what's right and do what's best for the district collectively.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much. Terrell Williams is running for the Delaware State House for District 9. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I can't say enough about this opportunity that you have given me to expand and share my platform with people, not just within the state of Delaware, but outside of the state of Delaware, which I think is important. And you just giving an unbiased take on what my candidacy is, what it represents, and what I'm trying to do. So, Bryan, thank you again.
I appreciate
And
the opportunity to talk to you.
no problem. And I look forward to continuing this conversation again once I'm elected.
Excellent.
So I like to tell people we are friends now.
Yeah. All
Do
right.
not be a stranger.
Best of luck, and I hope to see you on the other side of this win.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.